So let's go ahead and jump into the presentation here with a quote. You want to hit the screen? Now, I'm sure that many of you have seen this before, and I'm not sharing this to frighten anyone, but it's more to really underscore two key points that are pertinent for today's presentation. The first one being, I think we can all relate to the pressures of a shortening software development lifecycle. And secondly, organizational change, no matter what size of an organization you are, is difficult and certainly doesn't happen overnight. What we found with our clients, it really requires widespread commitment and diligence. And Hamesh is going to speak more deeply about these areas as he shares the vision of Zephyr. But before he gets started, I wanted to provide a quick overview of who Zephyr is for those who might not know us. We are a test management software company, but our mission is to help our client partners actually spend less time testing. And I know that that may sound antithetical, but this is really our daily focus. We really focus on leading our clients towards greater efficiencies in testing and better collaboration so that they can really spend more time building products and getting them to market faster. Go ahead with the next one. Zephyr, we are the world's largest test management software tools and the largest on the Atlassian marketplace, as you can see, with over 18,000 customers around the world in 100 countries. And also, if you can hit the screen there, we are deployed through, whoops, go up, yeah, there. we have 3 product offerings. So Zephyr for Jira, which sits natively inside of Jira. And then we have 2 standalone products, Zephyr Teams, which is designed for smaller teams, 10 to 20 testers, as well as Zephyr Enterprise, which is designed for larger teams that provides different options for deployment, as well as 24/7 dedicated support. So with that overview of Zephyr, it's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Hamesh, who will begin the presentation.
Thank you, Tom, and welcome everybody. Tom, can you hear me well?
Yes, you're good, loud and clear.
Everybody, welcome again, and I think in the next 25 to 30 minutes, we'll have a good sort of share with you around what we've been doing at Zephyr with respect to our test management, and more importantly, how I think we have been transforming and trying to lead our clients and industry with advancements towards automation, DevOps, and predictive analytics, an area that is very close to my heart as well. So very, very keen to share in the next coming slides all of the work that we have done here, and I'm sure you will find this of interest. So I put this slide together as a traditional software delivery model, and I think, you know, I sort of started my career as a developer, and I remember my days back at Cisco about 20 years back, when we used to get this PRD, and then, you know, some of you may remember, you know, when we had the PRD, the developers used to write code to the PRD. There used to be testing, integration testing, you know, regression testing, putting the code back into the branch, and then eventually the whole cycle really took about 9 months before the product actually went to the field and saw the light of the door. And then if there was any feedback from the field, we took that feedback back to our developers, but those developers had already moved on, right? So this whole model of, you know, whole traditional software delivery model, which spanned these handoffs between one function to the other function, clearly showed us that there was no room for feedback, there was no room for fast iterations. The time to market was not there. And so clearly what we have started to embrace and the industry has started to embrace is a continuous software delivery model, which many of us or many of you who are listening to this webinar must already be familiar with and are working towards. It's clearly the industry has shown us, the market has shown us that we must be able to deliver products in smaller increments, in frequent increments. We must be able to take feedback from the market fast, from our customers fast, and then iterate with that feedback back into our products. And that's truly where continuous software delivery has started to come in. You know, it's all about small teams working together, small feature teams working together, empowered to develop feature, taking responsibility of the end-to-end, and putting products out to the market faster, and then taking feedback and iterating. Now, there is also this concept of the minimum viable product. It's funny, and I'm a big fan of this actually. It's funny when this was brought up, before in my previous tenure, I said, "Oh, you're talking about most valuable player," when they said MVP, and truly it was all about, trying to work your products in a minimum viable product fashion. So somebody told me, Hamesh, you can drink coffee with a cup, and the cup can not have a handle to begin with, but you can still drink coffee from that cup. But when you put that, and you can still put that cup out and then take feedback and then put the handle later. So it's clearly about how do we get feedback faster from the market? How do we iterate fast? How do we prepare that continuous loop of our products? And that's where I think the whole premise of minimum viable product is so useful when we have to ship products out to the market. Now, we can talk about minimum viable product. We can talk about continuous software delivery. We can talk about all of this, but how do we get there is what I plan to walk with you through the rest of the presentation, as we go through the Zephyr's vision. So for us, I think it's clearly, we are very clear that at Zephyr, as we build our products, as our vision for the next few years to come is that as industries embracing continuous software delivery, as all our clients are embracing continuous software delivery, we want to be there by them to help them with the continuous testing agility that comes with continuous software delivery. I can talk about continuous software delivery all day long, but unless you have continuous testing agility, and we'll see through the slides as I speak, you cannot achieve continuous software delivery. And so the 4 pillars that we have built, that we are building our products around to help you achieve this vision of continuous testing agility are around agility. This term is no foreign to all of you, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about automation. Then we'll talk about the strategy to DevOps and how do we transition to the same. And then I'll touch on analytics, and more so predictive analytics, and what we have been doing with the data that we have, and some of the artificial intelligence models that we've been building on the data to help you get to predict some key use cases. So let's start with Agile, right? Now, Agile, I think most of you today who are listening to this webinar, Agile is a term that all of you know, so I'm not going to spend time talking about Agile practices and scrums and stuff. But some of the key highlights that I wanted to bring up is that if you look at this chart today, and why we put up is the adoption is still low. I would have, when we were doing the survey, when Tom was doing the survey, we thought that the adoption might be high, but we were surprised by the numbers. And there is still a very huge market out there who's dependent on tools other than, like Excel and Google Docs, other than, the core collaboration tools from Atlassian and other vendors. So we clearly see there is still a lot of adoption to take place in the industry and market today. And then we said why. We asked the question why, and some of the answers that came to us were very clear that they really lie around your company culture, philosophy, in terms of how you want to do time to market, how do you want to build collaborative teams, how do you want to build micro teams or empower to deliver features as one unit. Then the other one was around the agile methods. Clearly, the agile is good to have, but there is a lot of infrastructure work that needs to be done, preparing your teams, in terms of a very agile fashion, other than even practices and philosophies. But there is some infrastructure work, and I'll touch upon that as we go along. And then clearly lack of management support also we found. So, as you're listening to this webinar, clearly, and as you try to make transition to Agile, it's an important area to discuss with your management and how this will help you in your goal for continuous software delivery. So how's Zephyr? Now let's talk about Zephyr, right? We spoke about Agile, but let's talk about Zephyr. So at Zephyr, when we are building a platform, as Tom said, our core foundation is our test management platform. And when we are building the platform, we keep the principles that we want to be flexible. We want to have the workflows that are agile in our platform, right? We want to be able to support those workflows. We want to be able to have areas such as sharing, versioning, collaboration in our platform, so that again, we are creating that collaboration between dev and QA and providing you those workflows. We want to be able to support in our platform, any automation integrations, because I'll touch upon this, but automation is a very key driver for today. I can probably speak a whole day on automation, because that's how so important it is. I mean, we can talk about DevOps, we can talk about the right analytics, but unless you have automation and unless you pay emphasis on automation, we'll never get there. So clearly, we recognize that at Zephyr in our DNA, and we said, in terms of our integration with any frameworks. We also pay a lot of attention towards the analytics. As you're moving towards this agility, how can we provide you analytics, real-time analytics and predictive analytics, end-to-end analytics, traceability to help you in this transition towards Agile. And this slide we put together to really show about, many of you on the webinar may already be working with the Atlassian toolset today. When we talk about Agile, many of you have adopted the Atlassian toolset. So be it Jira, be it Confluence, be it Bamboo, be it some of the capture add-on, essentially what we acquired, the Trello, and we at Zephyr have, as we are building our product portfolio as well, we have made sure that we are, attached by hip with Atlassian in terms of their offerings as well. Because as I said, once the continuous software delivery cannot be achieved by continuous testing agility, right? And so we want to be there as Atlassian is building up products on collaboration, on Jira, on making more agile development tools. We want to be there right with them, supporting them on the continuous testing agility paradigm. Let's talk about automation. Okay. Automation is a very key driver as you try to move towards Agile, as you try to move towards DevOps, and as you try to better your time to market. And we all know that. And the key clearly here is what we see is that an attention from the organizations to do this is very important as we move towards this initiative of automation. Here at Zephyr, our mission is that we want to be able to integrate with our platform any automation framework. So today, if you take our platform, if you're working with our platform and you decide you want to use Selenium for automation, you want to use maybe Eggplant, or you want to use Tosca, or you want to use Cucumber from BTD perspective. Our platform supports those integrations and is able to pull the results into our platform for any automation framework, and we are able to then map them to our manual testing results in the platform or to any other performance test results in the platform, and you get an end-to-end view between automated test cases, between manual test cases and other test cases, and we build also traceability around that. So that's been our sort of core mission around automation, making it very easier for you to integrate with us. And we also build parsers so that you don't have to worry about any framework using our APIs, to essentially to put the results into our platform. It's one-click integration that we say with our automation integration. So what I'm showing you here in this slide is essentially truly a screenshot from our platform, right? Where you can essentially go in, just select any framework that you want to integrate with, and you can have your result path. The ZBot that we say here is nothing but an agent that will farm on your framework, on the automation framework, and bring the results onto your platform. It's as simple as that in terms of automation integration. And then, once you have done the selection of your framework, all you need to do is essentially do an execute button, and you have the result path. And what it does is it just has our agent execute, the automation results onto the framework, in the framework that you've chosen, and then bring those back into it. And then essentially, there's also another way that you can do is, and somebody may say, well, I'm using Jenkins, I'm not using any automation framework. So we say that's not a problem at all. We just tells us the folder that we want to watch, for any automation results that you want us to put into our platform, and we watch at that folder, and we bring the results into our platform. And it's as simple as that in terms of the integration. We are very, before I get there, but I just wanted to spend perhaps a few seconds here, but we are very excited about this sort of vision around automation. We will continue in terms of the seamless integration with any framework that you have. On our plans, you also have the capability of being able to schedule from within the platform, so we can schedule the same instead of if you want to just build that scheduling capability from Zephyr itself, you will have that. You also have in our plan of being able to have multi-distributed. You may be having different agents running on different machines, and we're able to collect those results and bring it onto our platform. And we'll continue to sort of integrate, build our parcel library. Let's assume there's a new automation framework in the market, and that gets very much popular. And if it's not one of those JUnit or JSON or any other framework, then we will build up that parser and integrate with our platform. So at Zephyr, this remains one of our key focus in our product releases and iterations that we do. Now let's talk about DevOps and AI, for which we are all here as well in terms of how Zephyr is doing in these areas. But I wanted to sort of set a stage around how the whole movement around agility, movement around automation, because we can talk about DevOps, but unless you have automation in your infrastructure, I don't think so we can build the right path towards DevOps. And so, the DevOps, we call it a shift-left movement. Clearly, I mean, Tom likes to phrase that, but truly, the whole idea behind DevOps is, it's become a big buzzword in the industry today. Everybody says we want to have, DevOps. But truly, it's all about, well, how do we putting more accountability on the development, right? We have been used to the model wherein there have been handoffs where development does its piece of work, hands it off to QA then hands it off to ops hands it off to support. But clearly, where the DevOps, what we call DevOps is to say, development, you are building the code, you need to take responsibility of the quality upfront. You need to take the responsibility of making sure that the code is deployed to production. You need to take the responsibility that when the production defect comes, you are there to sort of look at it. So it does not become that I have developed my code and I'm done and I'm moving on. And that's where the whole DevOps philosophy sort of came about, to say, how do we bring this up more and more accountability on development to begin with. Now, in doing so, we are also looking at, well, how do we enable development now with more tools so that they can put time on quality? How can we enable development to sort of build more automated tests so that they can focus on quality, right? Because development may come back and say, well, that's truly not my job. I'm responsible for developing and I'll do unit tests. But if we are placing this kind of accountability on development, we also want to enable them, right? And we also want to enable automation in your infrastructure so that the way they put the code into the production is that entire infrastructure also automated. Otherwise, what may start to happen is then they'll say, well, we have added 10 other things onto development and they've slowed down my productivity, they've slowed down my feature development. That was not the role I signed up for. So again, we can talk about DevOps, but truly we have to enable the infrastructure. We have to enable the culture. We have to enable the tools to be able to be successful in this transition. And the way we find some of the essentials for the DevOps transition is truly, as I touched about, automation in the infrastructure. That's the key. And then, when I sort of tried to move one team in my previous tenure towards a very DevOps philosophy, I quickly realized that yes, practices is one thing, culture is one thing, but if you have not enabled automation and infrastructure where the code can be deployed, feedback can be taken, and then automation can be run, and if there's a fix, you go back and put your code back in again. DevOps philosophy fits. Skill set changes. You have to again look at as one team that is working to achieve this feature delivery. So when we talk about one team, which means that taking end-to-end responsibility, which means that you need to start to have end-to-end knowledge of your stacks. Right? I mean, if we are traditionally very familiar with web developers, with mobile developers, with backend developers, but in this transition towards DevOps, you need full stack so that they are taking accountability of end-to-end. You need folks who can also understand the operations. You need folks who can also understand some of the automation frameworks and all of that. So clearly, you need to look at your teams and say, do I have the skill set so that I can empower this team to run and deliver features? I said, change in the team's mindset. Again, it's a shift of thinking, right? It's no longer that I'm done. QA, this is your responsibility now. And then ops, it is your responsibility. That's clearly a change of thinking that we have to enable. And then, again, from a reporting standpoint of view, and as I said, from a tool standpoint of view, all this is good, but how do you change the thinking? They'll say, well, you're adding 10 other things on my plate. You have to enable them with tools. You have to enable them with the right infrastructure to help you move to DevOps. So this is the need that we recognized at Zephyr. And we said, clearly what we saw with our clients was that they have been doing manual testing. And then they needed, some of them were using Excel or Google Docs or some other traditional quality management tools. They wanted to move to Agile. So they came and adopted our test management platform. The next thing that they wanted to do was clearly move towards automation. And they said, okay, we have adopted perhaps Selenium, perhaps Eggplant. And they said, can you integrate those frameworks with our platform? And we said, yes. And then, they're slowly starting to prepare themselves for what they call as also towards the DevOps transition. And in this transition, what we realized is there are two things we need to help over the next couple of years. One is, how are we enabling our development with more tools so that they can focus on quality? We enable them around that. We create tools so that they spend less time, if they have to do some testing, but how do we enable them to spend less time on that? So that was A. We have to do that in the next 2 years. And the other thing that we also realized is that automation, we can talk about 100% automation. I used to also talk about that in my previous tenure. But what I've realized is you can never be 100% automated. We have all these tools and we can say we want to drive to 100% automation, but that will never happen. You will still have a component of manual testing. You will still have a component of your integration testing. You know that we go through UI changes. You know that we go through some of the other, if there is mobile sets as well, some browser compatibility changes. And it's very tough at times to make sure that we are able to keep up with those changes with our automation. Yes, APIs is a very good candidate, and those remain stable, and then we can, server to server. That is very possible. But then how about some of these UI changes? So clearly we understand that you're not going to be fully automated. And so how do we give you that view? How do we provide developers that view where they can see the mapping of manual testing to integration testing to their automated testing as well, that they put in their repositories? And that was a need we realized that we have to solve in the next 2 years and help with development in this direction. And so what we built was a DevOps platform as a standalone platform with collectors to different tool sets in your pipeline. So we realized that in developers' view, they are living in their IDE. They are committing code, right? And then the builds happen. And then against those builds, you want to run perhaps static analysis tools. You want to run code coverage tools. You want to run some other security tools. But how are we bringing this entire picture together against those commits, against those builds, is what we realize that we have to bring this view together for as we are moving towards DevOps. So today, our DevOps platform has selectors that can integrate with your Jira. And if you see on the left, we have a gadget there that can integrate with a code repository. So you can have it Stash or GitHub or any repository that you have. You can integrate with your build system. So you can have Maven, Ant. You can integrate with your quality code coverage. So you can have Coverity, you can have SonarQube, you can have any of the tools that you have in that regards. And then, Puppet, Chef, or any of the deployment tools as well. And then we can map these to the results that we bring from a platform that you see on the bottom right side. So what we see here is that, and we want to eventually expose this view from the IDE for development, right? So the developer is there in the IDE. He says, okay, I made a commit. Let me go look at this view. You'll be able to see, how my commit has, what are the results against my code commits and the builds. You could take a look at the view. Other members, QA managers, can also take a look at the view. The morning they get up, project managers, they come and look at the view and say, well, last night the build failed. I can actually now go and drill in the build. I can look at the commits that failed the build. I can then also look at the code repo, and it will show me the people who made commits. I'll give the names as well. I can take a look at the tests that were done against those builds too, and this starts to give you an entire picture. The next slide actually starts to show you around that we can extend this towards a project by project basis as well for your organization, right? So now you have a view, you can define KPIs for each project in terms of your health of your pipeline. You can have your KPIs around the number of commits, the number of contributors. You can have KPIs around in terms of the technical debt, the code coverage, and all these KPIs you can start to see in one single dashboard across 10, 20 projects in your organization. And that's our goal with the DevOps vision that we have over the next 2 years, to enable this transition for all of you. Let's talk about, now having talked about DevOps at length, let's talk about analytics and how we are bringing DevOps testing and in the form of analytics together. And we'll talk about some of the things that we are doing with our AI at Zephyr as well. So we all know that big data and DevOps coming together, we can coin the word big data, but it's truly about, we have a lot of data in the system today, right? We have, and I'll share with you how we look at the data. But what it dawned upon us was that today we are making some very reactive decisions in our software delivery model. But since we have so much data in the system, there's an opportunity here that we can use that data. We can use the historical data to be more predictive, to be more creative. So it's not the buzzword big data and AI and all that stuff, but it's truly about, we have data in the system from the past. How do we make use of the data to help you be more creative and more productive? And we'll talk about that. So there is, from an analytics point of view, we have our customers who are working very closely with each other, and one of our very close customers, Toyota, who has a platform, they are sort of been working with us very closely and trying to innovate and spearhead our vision of DevOps and predictive analytics in their industry as well. And it's been a very fruitful partnership. And again, what is very apparent to us talking to customers like this and others is that it's clearly they want to be more predictive. They want to be they want to be able to make some decisions beforehand and not just be reactive. And if there's data decisions that we can help them, they're very happy with it. So why test management and AI, right? I mean, when I joined Zephyr as well, in my history, I've built up mobile products back in my previous tenure, and we built some very mobile, good data platform. But I've never thought about software delivery and predictive analytics, software delivery and data. And so when I looked at test management, and we said, look, there is a plethora of data that we have in our test management platform. We have defects, we have test cases, we have data from IoT, executions, and how do we make use of this data to give you some better decisions, better predictive decisions, rather than just being reactive all the time. And that was the goal of our thinking around our predictive analytics vision, around our future analytics vision with Zephyr. So again, this here, I just wanted to outline around, how are we looking in terms of our software delivery challenges today? Some of the common questions that we always have are, our sprints are on track. I come in the morning and we ask ourselves, are the defects, is the defect closure rate good? How's the defect open rate? Will the release be on time? What are the burn down charts? So some of these questions we keep on asking ourselves each day as we come during the release, and then we take decisions. And we said, the sprints are not on track, but it's only 2 weeks left. What do we do? We delay, we reduce the scope, we add people. But we already are in the middle of some commitments that we have done to a customer who will then walk away if we don't deliver to that date. So rather than being sort of caught in the predicament, is there a way we can give you a little bit more insight much before? And that's our goal with our predictive analytics vision. So clearly, I think at Zephyr, and I'll talk a little bit about the use cases in the following slides, but we are doing a whole lot around the advanced analytics in addition to real-time analytics out of the platform over the years to come. So we built about 3 use cases around our predictive analytics, and we've started to roll these out to our customers. And if you're interested in a trial, please reach out to us as well. But clearly, what we saw, what we call as the process stability prediction model, right? We have, data around your defects from the previous release, and so it's if we can tell you that based on the defects over the past so many releases, that these are the most hot test cases, that these are the test cases you should run at the beginning of the cycle, right? It's helpful to you because this is where we have had most impact in this area. This also tells you the impact analysis much upfront. And so you can focus on those rather than probably doing them at the end, because they'll give you more sort of burden at the end. We also have a plan versus execution trend chart, wherein we tell you, because we have data around your executions, we have data around your previous velocities. So we tell you based on this, based on these resources and the executions that you've done in your cycle, you are not going to meet the release deadline. And you can then choose how you want to add or not add people to sort of meet the release deadline again. So that's another gadget that is available as part of this. The next is the automation. We call it the process improvement prediction gadget. Well, today, as you're moving towards automation, one of the first things that comes to mind is, well, I have these 130,000 test cases, or I have these 16,000 test cases, or 17,000 test cases that we work. Which test cases should I choose to automate first? Where should I spend my energy for automation? And that's where our models, our machine learning model, based on the input that you may have, because you may have, I want to see if we can have only API driven to be automated first. We are able to tell you these are the test cases, are good candidates based on your input to be automated first from the 17,000 test cases. Then we call it the efficiency improvement prediction model. Right? From our machine learning models, what we can also tell you today is that let's assume a test case has failed. And then our system will tell you, you don't have to run the 5,000 other test cases because those will fail as well. We ask you before we mark them, predict a failure. So essentially what we are doing is we are parsing your test case that has failed. And based on certain syntax, we are saying that you don't have to run the next 5,000 test cases. It's like if your login is failing, then why do you want to run a provisioning test case? And so this becomes much more easier in your day-to-day, where the system is telling you you don't need to run these 40 other test cases based on that. And if you look at our architecture, it's a very much, we have quite a bit of work in the AWS that we have done. We have both on-prem and in the cloud as well. We use some of the computing power of the cloud for the machine learning framework of Amazon. Behind the scenes, we're also using the Kinesis streaming as we collect the data from any collector that we have. This data input also connects to our framework in our Zephyr, and essentially then we have the Athena, and then we have the ML modeling and prediction servers that we run to be able to give you all the predictions. Right, and then if you're interested, I'd love to get into more details around the architecture. You can please send me a note around the same as well. I'm happy to also walk you through the DevOps platform architecture that we have had. So in both these areas that we are continuing to advance and innovate in. All right, dear team, as I said, that's pretty much what we wanted to share with you today in this forum. We wanted to bring about what we are doing with respect to how we are innovating in DevOps, how we are innovating in AI with our data, and how we are truly building our products around Agile, automation, DevOps, and predictive analysis in the year to come.